PC Culture Consult. We are outsiders living here in Germany.
We are both native English speakers. We see some really similar things and really different things.
We sit on this couch.
Lovely couch.
And we talk about all things having to do with American culture,
British culture,
and German culture. Or Germany. Previous videos, we talked about German stereotypes. That was fun. Also, kind of a hot-button issue. So, today, we could talk about American British stereotypes.
There are so many stereotypes for every culture, every nationality,
Right.
every language.
And these could be good or bad.
For example, Americans, you're so over-friendly.
To the point where we're fake.
Not true.
Yeah.
British, so cold and reserved. Not true.
What other stereotypes have you heard?
Everything is bigger in America.
Yeah. So, the problem with stereotypes is that they might be born of a fact or an idea or someone's personal experience. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're completely true.
If we look at Britain or Germany, people often talk about the North-South Divide, the East-West Divide. It's the same in America. The people are very different north to south, east to west, because the weather is also very different. Whether it's a massive continent country or a small continent country, everywhere seems to be a big difference between north, south, east and west.
Yeah.
Even in Britain, north and south. If you go up north, what is it with these people up there? They never get dressed. That's the middle of winter and they're wearing like shorts and hot pants and mini skirts and no jackets. Well, that's not true of everybody. From my personal experience, every time I've gone up Midlands or north in the UK, I froze watching people. I like full respect to you guys for like not leaving your coats and your hats and scarves and everything, but I freeze watching you guys.
But they're used to the climate.
They're used to it, exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas the snowflakes from the south.
Well, this is the same thing with people from Canada and some people that seeing in the beginning of winter, people in Canada wearing shorts and socks with sandals or even just sandals, whereas someone else that might be from a lower latitude really bundle up. I just think that is really funny because it's true. It's what you're used to. Take, for example, everything's bigger in America. This depends on where you are. If you are on the East Coast, everything is not bigger because the distances are shorter. There's more people packed into the spaces that are allowed. It really isn't until you start getting out of the East Coast that you encounter larger states, further distances. That's partly because of geography, but it's also historically how the United States developed. For example, I come from the state of Oregon on the West Coast. When people think of the West Coast, they think of stereotypes about California. California girls, surfing, sun. Well, in the Northwest, it's a little cold. It takes at least 5 hours driving straight, there's no traffic, to go from the top of the state to the bottom.
The size of America alone. Size of America. How many times could Britain fit into that?
The continental United States is roughly the same size as the country and continent of Australia. We have a much more diverse landscape, but still roughly the same size. That's a lot. People don't normally think, I believe, of Australia being as big as it is.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think people realise the size of Australia.
Yeah.
Or how small Britain is in terms of landmass.
Yeah.
Or relatively how big Germany is compared to some other countries, but also how small it is.
Right. Other stereotypes about America that we're loud or boisterous.
That you all wear cowboy hats.
Yeah, that we're all cowboys. From the West, everyone's a cowboy. No. That everyone is also patriotic. Everyone has a flag. These things are maybe true about a portion of the people of the country. But as we said, America is a huge place. There have been many books written about the diversity and regionalism. That we are a very large country, but within that, it's better to look at the regions. Each one of these regions has their own identity.
Would I be correct in saying that part of the reason for the different identities is actually from how America was created in the first place? Because
Absolutely.
there were many people from outside of America coming in from all over the world, and they landed on different shores and ended up in those particular areas. So there are some parts of America that have a very French feel, very German feel, very Irish feel. So the different communities kind of set up there and had an influence to the language, the food, interests, cultures, and such things.
Absolutely. In the Northwest and the West, we have a very strong Native American influence. Part of this is because as people came west for westward expansion, the government of the United States put the Native Americans on reservations in particular parts of the country. We have in the Northwest and probably Southwest, outside of California, very strong Native American influence. In the upper Midwest is German influence. It really has had an influence on how these places have developed and the stereotypes that end up coming out of them.
Ironically, I mean, every country has these stereotypes, as we've said.
Going back to America, how we don't have an official language.
Huh? Really?
We don't. No.
Wow.
So the people that
Just assume everyone speaks English.
yes, everybody does, but we don't have an official language, officially recognized language. We speak English here. Yeah, but it's not official. And as you said, there are parts that speak French, Creole, German, native languages.
So many people in America speaking multiple other languages at home.
Right.
Yeah.
And absolutely, you have, I mean, it's an immigrant nation. So you have people that are first generation, second generation, and in their homes, they speak their first language. When students in schools are learning language, of course it's going to be taught in English.
The stereotype from Britain, for example. Everyone from Britain either sounds like a Cockney, hi I love, or a posh, somehow related to the Queen. If you meet somebody and you say you're British, and it's like, do you know the Queen? Have you had tea with the Queen? Yes, of course, weekly. Or, yeah, can you say, like, bangers and mash? Or, Bob's your uncle? You're right, mate, yeah. Which is up north, Midlands, Mancunian. And the reality is, I have a huge variety of accents, even in a small country.
Britain is amazing because they have so many different accents and different dialects.
But Britain was also founded on people coming into it. It's an island, so people are coming into it from every angle. You had the Vikings, the Romans, the classic famous too. A lot of the people on the northwest side and the Irish side, up towards Scotland as well, they look like what you think a Viking should look like. There's more of a written, bigger, taller build. And yet, down southeast, there were a lot more Romans. There are a lot of Roman ruins. Then, centred around London, you obviously had all the traders, Chinese, Indian, African, at different periods of time. They were bringing in people from all over the world. So these influences were massive in terms of what is now seen as standard British. For example, the British curry. It's not British, but it is British.
Yeah. British curry comes from India.
Correct. When the British ruled India at that point in time.
Britons claim the curry as their own because it's become such a part of their culture.
But the particular curries that don't exist in India, they only exist in England, or a particular mix of spices that also were essentially created for the British palate. If anybody out there knows, write in the comments of which particular curry spices tastes are purely British made. But the same happened in American food, didn't it?
Right, American burrito. The burrito itself originated in Mexico. I eat burritos even in Germany monthly.
You grew up with it?
Yeah, I grew up with it.
I grew up with curry.
It's
cultural appropriation.
Maybe.
Touchy subject?
Perhaps. Maybe not. That is a touchy subject. It's not something I'm ready to get into now. But
with culture, they take a bit of this and that from their neighbourhood. Where we live in Germany, it's very near to France. There's a lot of French influence.
Yes. There are a lot of Italians. Historically, we have tons of pizza and pasta restaurants.
And ice cream shops.
And so we have great gelato, great pizza, great pasta, but it's to the German palate.
Going back to stereotypes, the weather's always awful in Britain. It's always raining and grey. It's always foggy. Not true.
That was one thing that surprised me when I moved to London. My mother gave me a trench coat, an umbrella.
Just one.
Then the weather was great.
But my husband said the same. When we were just dating and he was visiting me in London, literally every time he came, the weather was amazing.
Yeah.
The weather is very changeable in the UK, and it gives cause for people to have something to talk about easily. The British are obsessed with talking about the weather. That is true. They also do 4 seasons in one day.
Also in the Northwest, same thing.
So you as an American, if you think of England, Britain, British people, what are some cliches that come to mind?
Right off the top of my head, bad teeth. Americans absolutely will do anything for a Brit as long as they keep talking.
Huh?
Because they love the accent.
Oh, okay. So with the teeth, I've heard about this, and the irony is Supposedly, because of the Hollywood smile, everyone has these perfect teeth. Very, very overly white, very bleached. And so that's what's become considered the norm. The reality is that's not normal. You're not supposed to have identical looking pearls in a row. I have heard by some dental stuff, British teeth are considered some of the healthiest in the world, even though they may not be pearly white.
Yeah. Part of the British Health Service, you have dental care.
They actually look after your teeth, and they're checked from a very young age. Like you're forced to go and get checked.
Whereas theoretically in America, we have great teeth and great dental care. It's a part of an insurance that you may or may not have. Even though growing up, my parents and my family had insurance, we needed braces, the things on our teeth to make them straight. That cost a lot of money in America. It's free in Britain.
The NHS ones, which were the big metal monsters, and if you had a bit more money, then you could pay for ones which were a bit more hidden. The teeth is a good stereotype. Would you like me to continue talking? Do you like my accent? We'll do an episode talking British and American words. That could be fun.
Yeah. Certain RP accents receive pronunciation. The Queen's English.
Queen's English.
Yes,
Okay. Well, actually, British TV has changed a lot over the years. Years ago, British broadcasting, everything had to be spoken like that. Terribly, terribly nicely, put a plum in your mouth. But over the years, changed to have regional accents, and you get hardcore regional accents that even the average Brit finds difficult to understand. So just because you're from Britain doesn't mean that you necessarily find it easy to understand somebody from somewhere else.
Right. That's interesting.
You still have to tune your ears in.
So in the United States, we have something similar, like the broadcasting voice, the broadcasting dialect, and it's supposed to be a very general type of pronunciation, very clear. But I think it's supposed to be based off of Middle America, very general but very clear. Any other stereotypes that you've heard about Britain or America?
There's probably loads. I just can't think of a second. What about you? A stereotype for Britain or America for you? Yeah. Let us know, and we can discuss that in another episode.
You said that Brits love to talk about the weather, and English speakers in general are really great about small talk. Maybe a sport would also be a stereotype.
A way of connecting, superficially connecting and kind of being friendly without getting too detailed and intimate on things that you're not allowed to talk about.
In a previous episode, we also talked about the coconut and the peach. I think stereotypes, or the stereotype of small talk and talking about the weather, this is a way for English speakers in general to open the door to conversation, to get to know the other person, whether it be a moment or business arrangement. This is something everyone experiences, so why not talk about it? That would be the way to get your foot in the door and then go from there.
Absolutely, you've hit the nail on the head there. And this is where there can be cultural clash sometimes, because there are some communities that they get in a meeting, they don't want chit-chat, they just want to start the meeting, right, let's get on. Whereas I think British and American people like to have that banter, that kind of, oh, how was your commute in? Or how did today start? Or, oh, have you had a coffee yet? Or I haven't had a coffee yet. Or, oh gosh, look at the weather, I got drenched on the way in.
Right.
It's just softening the mood, it's making you feel comfortable before you get to business, before you get to work. And it's not meant as frivolity, it's not meant as I'm not taking this meeting seriously. It's actually part of the meeting, it's part of connecting us you're about to converse with on a deeper level. And so if you have a different culture that says they're not focusing on the subject, you can obviously have a little bit of a mismatch there. It does fall into stereotypes where certain cultures are seen as frivolous and fake, and others are seen as too serious or not interested in connecting socially.
Where we might be seen as frivolous and fake, there are other cultures that the way that they conduct business is that you need to have that connection. So, you might go out to lunch or dinner, maybe an American or a Brit is expecting, we'll discuss business over this meal. No.
While you're out at lunch or dinner, you don't talk about work anymore.
Right.
You talk about social life, personal stuff, sports, just to get to know each other properly.
Right.
Yeah.
Seen as rude if you try to talk about the business that you're trying to conduct. Whereas in America or Britain, we would probably discuss business and then say, oh, let's have lunch, and continue to discuss business.
And
it's really a continuum.
And yet they're probably then thinking, I'm being good here because I'm staying on track with business and we can get more done. The other option would be not even having lunch or dinner, but staying in the office, working the longer hours, and then making visitors, foreigners, contacts do the same, which is actually then insulting them because you're not allowing them to have that break or that personal time. But that again can go back into the stereotype.
This has been Christina and
Michelle.
We are MC Culture Consult. Again, thanks for listening. If you have any suggestions or comments, leave a comment.